Hey everyone, welcome once again to the Winning Digital Customers Show. And over the last few weeks, we've been taking time out to look at some trends from the last year as we've been starting a new year of 2022, just to take a look at a couple of the waves of digital transformation in different industries as we have some numbers coming in now that aggregate all of 2021 together. So today, let's talk about restaurants. And I love restaurants in the context of digital transformation because, I remember sitting at restaurants talking about the way banks were going to be transformed and the way that, travel was going to be transformed and retail was being transformed. And I'm talking, 15 plus years ago. And then, holding my hand up and asking the waitress or waiter to come bring me some more coffee or bring me the check. In other words, restaurants weren't the place we initially thought, wow, digital is going to make the restaurant experience totally different. It seemed like the kind of thing that, might be fine as it was. And yet, in part due to the forcing impact of COVID, and in several ways, we're seeing the restaurant industry change very substantially. So first of all, the number one change that we've seen in the restaurant industry over the last couple of years is without a doubt the growth of food delivery to the home. This chart is showing the fact that in aggregate, food delivery to the home over the last couple of years is up about 38%. Now, on the one hand, you might think it would be up even more than that. When I saw these numbers, I kind of intuitively thought, given COVID and given the number of people that turn to, Uber Eats and Doordash and all these services, that it might be up even more than that. But the numbers we have from financesonline.com tell us it's about a 38% increase. The platform increase over the last couple of years has been about 30%. So Doordash and others like that. And that's what we mean by platform. And in fact, the restaurant to consumer delivery is up even more. It's up over 40%. So these are restaurants like you might be going to the Panera app and ordering, or you might be going to the Chipotle app and ordering. So these are situations where you're not going through an intermediary like Uber Eats. You're not going through a platform. You're going direct to the restaurant. So we're seeing this horse race in a sense, because in a way, many restaurants appreciate and kind of need platforms to provide both the technology behind ordering as well as the delivery and fulfillment services. So because they may not have the wherewithal to put together a whole food delivery solution. And on the other hand, those platforms are taking a lot of money from those restaurants. They mark it up on the customer side. They also take a portion on the restaurant's side. So restaurants also have an enthusiasm for trying to figure out if they can cut out that middleman and go direct. And of course, it's the larger restaurants, the larger chains that are in the best position to do this. Domino's, of course, has been doing this for years, but Domino's, of course, was in one of the two primary food categories that has been doing home delivery for years, which is to say pizza and Chinese food. It's all these other categories that are newer to the area of home delivery. So this has been, of course, a major, major trend. And we expect that will continue and not go down as COVID subsides, because so many people have developed new behaviors and new love for the ability to just pick up an app and order whatever they want and have it delivered efficiently to their house. And in fact, just if we look at DoorDash, just as one particular example, I had an opportunity to interview the CEO of DoorDash on stage at a conference recently, and he was talking to me about the fact that the company that now owns DoorDash began in the Netherlands and has been acquiring companies like DoorDash all over the world. This is clearly a very, very high growth space. And DoorDash alone increased its revenue 241% since the start of the pandemic. So clearly, if overall food delivery is up 38%, DoorDash is up a heck of a lot more than that. So clearly we see some of these platforms consolidating and generating massive, massive growth to meet this customer need. But, it's also really changed the restaurants themselves. One of the biggest trends we've seen on the restaurant side is the rise of what they call ghost kitchens. Because what's happened is many restaurants, when the pandemic began, they quickly turned to some form of delivery, whether through a platform or whether direct to customers, to make up for the fact that they didn't have customers sitting in their dining room. But then, of course, as the pandemic has gone through its various stages, it's been more possible for these restaurants to open their dining rooms. And depending on where geographically you're talking about and what restrictions they may have been under, in many cases, a lot of people came back to the restaurants and yet continued to order for delivery. And the consequence of that for many restaurants has been a massive surge in demand, which is great for restaurants, except many restaurants were built with a kitchen of a certain size designed for the amount of tables that the dining area of the restaurant could support. And all of a sudden, many restaurants were overwhelmed because they had one kitchen that was trying to both serve a restaurant full of people and a raft of incoming orders from a wide range of food delivery services. And so many restaurants, particularly those that have multiple locations already, are now creating these ghost kitchens, which are essentially restaurants that are only for pickup by food delivery services. So, a Panera or a KFC or a TGI Fridays or whoever can simply identify a location, perhaps not in a high traffic area where real estate is cheaper, create a kitchen in an area, it could be on the fourth floor of some building somewhere, but an area where there's a lot of deliveries in that vicinity, and use it strictly for the fulfillment of delivery. So very, very interesting new trend in the food delivery space. And I think we're going to continue to see this whole arena of prepared food being brought to the home by delivery growing. In addition to that, though, we're seeing a trend of digital transformation in restaurant dining as well. And there are many platforms now. Well, first of all, many restaurants, when the pandemic began, started providing QR codes so that people could have a touchless way of ordering. The original variation of this was very simple. A restaurant makes, like, say, a PDF version of their menu. I'm sure you've all experienced this. They put some sort of a card or standee on the table that says, scan this QR code, and we avoid passing menus around from person to person and potentially passing germs. And of course, QR codes as a form of touchless interaction have risen tremendously as a result of the pandemic, even though they've been around for more than a decade. During the last 18 months, so essentially the period of the pandemic, according to Bitly, who has a lot of the data, because a lot of those QR codes are going through Bitly shortened URLs, they say that the use of QR codes has grown 750% in the last 18 months or so. So that just shows you the rise in this form of contactless passing of some kind of a link or URL. And of course, that's across a variety of different domains, but one of them certainly is the use of a QR code to allow someone to quickly bring up a menu in a restaurant. And so the original variations of this were basically just, you look at the menu on your phone, waitress comes by, she or waiter, he, whoever, takes your order, and you have an otherwise non-transformed dining experience. So that's not really a major digital transformation. It's just an alternative to print, basically. But what we're seeing is that is transitioning into something much more transformative. And companies like Bbot and others are providing platforms to restaurants to allow them, instead of simply giving out little websites, mobile websites, or PDFs of their menu, to turn the in-dining room ordering experience to something more like you'd experience on Uber Eats or Doordash or Grubhub, where you can see all of the different dishes that you can order. In many cases, you can see photographs of them and sometimes nutritional information. Essentially add them to your cart and pay, and that order goes to the kitchen where it's prepared, and the wait staff knows what table ordered that, and then they can bring it to you. And while this is still nascent, this is growing rapidly. And personally, I think it has a massive transformational opportunity and an opportunity to solve what is one of the biggest problems in the restaurant industry today. A year ago, or a little more than a year ago, one of the biggest problems in the restaurant industry was you couldn't allow anyone to come to your restaurant, right? Because of COVID restrictions. And so that made food delivery to the home critical. Today, in most municipalities, you can allow people to sit in your restaurants. And in many cases, you can have a full seating without needing to reduce the tables either. So that's, from a business perspective, great news. I'm not trying to make any commentary here on the public health side of it. I'll leave that to others who know more about it. But the biggest challenge they have today, therefore, is not that people can't come to the restaurants, but rather the great resignation, the extremely low level of unemployment, inflationary wages, and the high level of employee turnover. And so as a result, many restaurants have revenue that is constrained or impacted by not being able to fill all of their open spots. And that, of course, goes across various areas, including kitchen, et cetera, but certainly those who are providing table service, the wait staff. And so these types of solutions have the potential to be really powerful, because if you think about a typical in dining room experience, your wait staff typically has, three primary times when they interact with you. They take your order, they bring in your food, and they deal with you on the check. And then there's kind of a fourth category of, ad hoc requests. I need a little more ketchup, or could I get another drink? And so let's just talk about those for a second. With this type of model where the customer orders from their own phone at their table, you've taken the three primary types of interactions and taken it down to only one. The wait staff does not need to come by the table in order to take an order. That's automatically sent to the kitchen from the phone. The wait staff does not need to deal with the bill. That's automatically dealt with on the phone with the customer, typically at the time of ordering. And lastly, yes, of course, the wait staff does have to bring the food. And then if you look at the fourth category, which is ad hoc requests, this is a very often a point of pain for people during in-restaurant dining, because I know you've had this problem. Now you need something, and can you get the attention of your waiter or waitress, because they're running around doing all those other things. And the consequence of that is two negative results. Number one, reduced customer satisfaction, because you have to put so much energy into trying to tell the waitress that you want another margarita. And then number two, if that waitress doesn't get to you soon enough, you may just decide, forget it. I don't need another margarita anyway. We're getting ready to go. Well, those add-on items, particularly drinks, are often the highest profit items for a restaurant. And so they certainly don't want to miss out on those orders. And when you have the at-table ordering system, you simply go back on your phone, you say, I want another margarita, and then someone brings it to you. So a lot of both customer benefit and business benefit, which is why I'm predicting that these solutions are going to substantially grow in the coming year, as they have been. Lastly, I just want to talk about restaurant kiosks, another area that grew. It kind of shrunk a little bit in 2020. It had been on the rise. Again, it's an early trend. Most restaurants don't have kiosks, but I'm sure you've seen more and more of them. McDonald's did a major rollout of kiosks. Panera Bread has done a major rollout of kiosks. And we're seeing more and more restaurants who are implementing a method so that people coming, and obviously this is for quick service restaurants, who don't need to wait in line. They can simply, obviously they can very often order on their phone, or they can go up to a kiosk and place that order in the restaurant. And even though there was a decline in that in 2020, because you had fewer people in the restaurants, that's now resumed its growth in 2021. And I think we're going to continue to see that grow as well. Lastly, I want to wrap up with just a fun one, which is that there's a company called Starship. If you're not familiar with this is trying to be a solution to that last point of interaction with the waitstaff, which is to say they produce robots which allow for autonomous deliveries, and they are being used in some restaurants. So they actually have their early stage. They've already got over 1 million deliveries completed, actually, as the beginning. I don't have new data from January of 22. Just an interesting idea that in the future, we may even be able to see that last point of contact with waitstaff in a restaurant, or that last mandatory point of contact with waitstaff in a restaurant, automated, at least in some cases. At least it's being experimented with. And, I should add, I don't think that the future of that means we don't need waitstaff in restaurants. I think the opportunity here is to take simple activities like writing down an order or bringing plates to a table and trying to automate those in various ways, which means really two things. First of all, it may mean you don't need as much waitstaff, and therefore, if you find yourself in a labor shortage like we're in now, it doesn't prevent you from allowing your restaurant to be seated at full occupancy. But also, it means your waitstaff can focus on higher value activities. After all, when ordering, some customers may have a question about a dish, or may want a recommendation for a wine pairing, or may have some issue with the food that has been delivered to them that needs to be addressed in a more personal way. So I think most restaurants, certainly above quick service restaurants, are going to still, of course, want waitstaff, but then they can let the waitstaff focus on those things which really benefit from human interaction, rather than just running around, running credit card receipts and putting it on people's tables, or doing other activities that may not be nearly as high value. So that's a quick roundup of some 2021 trends in the restaurant industry, an industry that is now being massively transformed, which is so interesting to me, because it's been more of a latecomer to the world of digital transformation. Banks went through this decades ago, but it's finally catching up to restaurants, in part accelerated by COVID and in part accelerated by the labor shortage. Hope that's been of interest to you. Always happy to hear your comments, so please post them below if you have any thoughts and other trends that you're seeing in the restaurant industry, or if you disagree with anything I said, let me know. I would love to hear that as well. Always interested to engage in lively debate, and I always love to learn things. So you may very well know something about this that I do not. But as always, I appreciate your watching and listening to the Winning Digital Customer Show. Look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, Keep transforming.